America's history is a tapestry of remarkable events, influential leaders, and groundbreaking ideas that have shaped the nation and the world. From the arrival of the first settlers to the rise of the United States as a global superpower, this script will take you on a journey through the pivotal moments that define American history. The story of America begins long before it was a nation. In the early 1600s, European settlers, primarily from England, established colonies along the eastern coast of what is now the United States. The first successful English settlement was founded in 1607 in Jamestown, Virginia. Life in the colonies was harsh, and survival was often uncertain. However, these early settlers laid the foundation for what would become a new nation. By the mid-18th century, the 13 colonies had grown significantly in population and economic strength. Yet, tensions between the colonies and Great Britain began to rise. The British government imposed a series of taxes on the colonies, such as the Stamp Act of 1765 and the Tea Act of 1773, without providing them representation in Parliament. The colonies' cry of "no taxation without representation" became a rallying point for resistance. In 1775, these tensions erupted into open conflict with the battles of Lexington and Concord, marking the beginning of the American Revolutionary War. The following year, on July 4, 1776, the Continental Congress adopted the Declaration of Independence, authored by Thomas Jefferson. This document proclaimed the colonies' right to self-governance and their break from British rule, stating that all men are created equal, and endowed with unalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The war for independence was long and brutal, but with the aid of France and other allies, the American colonists emerged victorious in 1781 with the British surrender at Yorktown. The Treaty of Paris, signed in 1783, officially recognized the independence of the United States, marking the birth of a new nation. With independence secured, the young United States faced the daunting task of creating a government that would reflect the ideals for which it had fought. The first attempt, the Articles of Confederation, proved inadequate, as it created a weak central government unable to effectively manage the country's affairs. In 1787, delegates from the states convened in Philadelphia to draft a new constitution. The resulting document, ratified in 1788, established a federal system of government with a balance of power between the executive, legislative, and judicial branches. The Constitution also included a system of checks and balances to prevent any one branch from becoming too powerful. The Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments to the Constitution, was added in 1791 to guarantee individual liberties such as freedom of speech, religion, and the press. These amendments ensured that the new government would protect the rights of its citizens, a principle that remained central to American democracy. As the United States grew, so too did its territorial ambitions. The idea of manifest destiny, the belief that Americans were destined to expand across the continent, drove the nation's westward expansion. The Louisiana Purchase in 1803, in which the U.S. acquired vast lands from France, doubled the size of the country. The Lewis and Clark Expedition, commissioned by President Thomas Jefferson, explored these new territories, mapping the land and establishing American presence. However, westward expansion also brought significant challenges. The displacement of Native American populations was a tragic consequence of this growth, leading to conflicts and forced relocations, most infamously the Trail of Tears in the 1830s. Additionally, the expansion of slavery into new territories became a deeply divisive issue. Slavery, which had been present in America since the early colonial period, became increasingly entrenched in the Southern economy. The cotton gin's invention in 1793 made cotton production highly profitable, leading to a surge in the demand for slave labor. As new states were added to the Union, the question of whether they would be free or slave states threatened to tear the country apart. By the mid-19th century, tensions over slavery had reached a boiling point. The election of Abraham Lincoln as president in 1860, on a platform that opposed the expansion of slavery, prompted Southern states to secede from the Union, forming the Confederate States of America. The Civil War began in 1861 when Confederate forces attacked Fort Sumter in South Carolina. The Civil War was the bloodiest conflict in American history, with over 600,000 soldiers losing their lives. The war was fought not only to preserve the Union but also to end the institution of slavery. In 1863, Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation, declaring that all slaves in the Confederate States were to be freed. This shifted the war's focus to a fight for human freedom. The Union's victory in 1865 brought an end to the Confederacy and slavery. The 13th Amendment, ratified later that year, formally abolished slavery throughout the United States. However, the challenge of integrating millions of freed slaves into American society was immense. The period known as Reconstruction, from 1865 to 1877, sought to rebuild the South and provide civil rights to newly freed African Americans. The 14th and 15th Amendments granted citizenship and voting rights regardless of race. However, Reconstruction faced fierce resistance in the South, where groups like the Ku Klux Klan used violence and intimidation to undermine these efforts. By the end of Reconstruction, many of its gains were rolled back, leading to nearly a century of segregation and disenfranchisement for African Americans. The late 19th and early 20th centuries saw the United States transform from a largely agrarian society into an industrial powerhouse. The growth of industries such as steel, railroads, and oil created vast fortunes for business tycoons like Andrew Carnegie, John D. Rockefeller, and J.P. Morgan. However, this rapid industrialization also led to severe social and economic inequalities. Workers often toiled in dangerous conditions for low wages, leading to the rise of labor unions and strikes demanding better treatment. The Progressive Era, from the 1890s to the 1920s, was marked by a wave of social and political reforms aimed at addressing these issues. Progressives sought to curb the power of big business, improve working conditions, and expand democracy through initiatives like women's suffrage, which was achieved with the ratification of the 19th Amendment in 1920. The 20th century brought both unprecedented challenges and opportunities for the United States. World War I, which began in 1914, saw America initially adopt a stance of neutrality. However, in 1917, the US entered the war on the side of the Allies, helping to tip the balance toward victory. The war's aftermath led to a period of economic prosperity known as the Roaring Twenties. This prosperity was short-lived, however, as the Great Depression struck in 1929 following the stock market crash. The Depression was the most severe economic downturn in American history, leading to widespread unemployment, poverty, and social unrest. President Franklin D. Roosevelt's New Deal program sought to provide relief, recovery, and reform, helping to stabilize the economy and provide a social safety net. World War II, beginning in 1939, once again drew the US into global conflict. After the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941, the US joined the Allies in the fight against the Axis powers. The war effort spurred industrial growth and led to significant technological advancements. The war ended in 1945 with the defeat of Nazi Germany and Imperial Japan, solidifying the United States' status as a global superpower. The post-war era was dominated by the Cold War, a period of geopolitical tension between the United States and the Soviet Union. The US sought to contain the spread of communism through a series of alliances and interventions, including the Korean War, 1950-1953, and the Vietnam War, 1955-1975. The Cold War also saw the space race, culminating in the US landing the first humans on the Moon in 1969. Domestically, the 1950s and 1960s were marked by the Civil Rights Movement, a struggle for racial equality led by figures like Martin Luther King Jr., Rosa Parks, and Malcolm X. The movement sought to end segregation and discrimination against African Americans and achieved significant victories with the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. The late 20th and early 21st centuries have seen the United States continue to evolve as a nation. The end of the Cold War in 1991 marked the US as the world's sole superpower. The economy experienced booms and busts, including the tech boom of the 1990s and the Great Recession of 2008. Social and cultural changes have also defined modern America. Issues such as LGBTQ+ rights, immigration, and healthcare have sparked national debates. The election of Barack Obama as the first African American president in 2008 was a historic milestone, reflecting the ongoing evolution of American society. In recent years, the United States has faced new challenges, including political polarization, the COVID-19 pandemic, and ongoing debates about the role of government.